Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about codependency. What the shift is codependency? And
you think you know.
You think you know. Yeah, there's a lot of medical jargon and words to describe what codependency is. And a book was written by Melody Beatty called Codependency No More. And it was brought to my attention by several people, but most recently, again, in Awaken Breathwork.
Yeah.
Hella mentioned to read this Codependency No More book. And I spent some time diving in, and it really hit,
It hit you pretty hard.
Yeah, it hit me pretty hard and brought up a bunch of stuff that was a completely different arc of shifting and healing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll get into that.
You called me pretty excited about this book.
Yeah. So before we get into that, we'll do these skin deep cards and see if we can get some questions going.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So I'll go first this time.
Okay.
And my question is, what's one experience you're glad I had and why?
Oh, man. Okay. Well, one experience I'm glad you had and why is really the place in your life when your marriage really started to come to a head in its own arc.
Yeah.
Right. And it was very hard watching you be in pain, you know, when things started to fall apart and you were at a very painful place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it gave you the greatest opportunity for your own awakening, meaning your own coming to terms with yourself.
Yeah.
And really having to look at who you are and who you want to be. And I think has provided you with the most growth I think that a human can experience or be lucky enough to experience. And, you know, and that's why I think it provided you with the greatest opportunity for growth. Yeah. And it's hard for me to say that looking at you because I'm like, who wants to say like the thing that's probably been the hardest for you, you know, one of the hardest things in your life is also the thing that I think, wow, it really kind of moved you into a place where you are more you than I've ever seen you. Yeah,
I didn't think you were going to, I was thinking, what is she going to say about this? And I was thinking something happy or positive.
I know.
But you know what? That's probably more, thank you to Ellen, you know, my ultimate teacher, showing me where I am not free. And so, yeah, I mean, had I not, I think, you know, we all get together with the people that we're meant to be with. And for a season or a reason, like you say. And she's really shown me a lot of things about myself. And so having everything come to a certain point where you got to change, you know, it's too uncomfortable to stay the same. And yeah, that's what did, you know, bring apart this whole kind of shift in my perception and how I look at things and all that. Yeah. So
yeah,
I guess it's a pretty fair one.
It's your biggest shift.
Yeah.
It's led to all the other ones.
But it wasn't one of those clean wipes, you know, like
it's definitely. There's a lot of autographs still left on that. And it's like, I think you better keep wiping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your question?
Okay. My question is, if our relationship was represented by a painting, what would that painting look like?
Well, the first thing I think of is the dogs at the Last Supper.
At the poker table
kind of thing, because our family just really held everything so close to the heart.
Yeah.
And I think we were all trying to have a better poker face.
Try to play our cards right.
Yeah.
All the while looking around like, what are we doing here? What
the fuck is going on?
What is this game?
Yeah. Are you in? I'm not in.
I don't know. I'm going to hold. I think I'm just going to fold.
Yeah. Well, I read somewhere recently that in an Asian family, you pay the rent with your emotional currency.
Oh, yeah. That can be very true.
I'm sure it could be true in every family, but it just hits hard with us because, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I think we paid a lot of rent with our emotional currency.
Yeah. That's pretty accurate. Now I can never not see that painting.
Well, now you'll think of that.
Also, we had that painting
We did.
hanging in and I always thought that was weird anyway, the poker, dogs playing poker. Yeah, weird. Okay.
So yeah, let's get into this book by Melody Beatty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Codependency
and
No
Codependency.
More.
So for me, it really came up because we've got some stuff going on with the family, and there's a lot of things where us as siblings have to come together for one of our other siblings and kind of rally around each other and support to help this person. And I think talking to our parents is really stirred up a lot of things and a lot of emotions that I held with Dad and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And reading this book at the same time really kind of started highlighting everything that I was going through and feeling like I needed to help. And I was giving up so much of myself to help this person and really just, pushing past some of my boundaries that I've already set up now that I'm in a healthier place, and then being challenged and then having to respond and react in a healthy way with my siblings and my parents while this tough situation's kind of going down, because we just really feel helpless. And so a lot of those same feelings of childhood kind of came right up, and this book was narrating in the background of this whole thing. So yeah, it just spoke a lot to me, and it really just brought up ways that I let myself down, and I guess it's not letting down, but I'm not holding to my own boundaries and protecting myself in many ways. And then, the other side of that is while I'm trying to help this other person, I'm seeing the ways that I don't help myself, and I'm trying to get this person to see how this is the best way for them, and this is the healthiest way for them. But I'm not even willing to take some of my own steps because I'm afraid of, the thing that's most present for me is my fear of moving forward with things and trusting, this imposter syndrome of kind of shifting into different ways of being happy and ways to make money and all those types of things and ways to survive. All of that is shifting for me right now. So this book is just really forced me to look in the mirror and see where I'm at, and really how that the codependency part of it really played a role, because we've talked about many of other parts of the shifting and the healing, but the codependency part just started to really pinpoint onto things. So what was your understanding of, even prior to kind of touching base with this book about
well, I mean, when I thought of codependency, I just thought of it as like if two people are in a relationship and they're like kind of feeding off each other's negativity in a way, or like one person is very needy, then the other person constantly has to come in and save, or that to me was like my general understanding. But in reading it, the way that Melody referred to the description, and that really stood out to me, was it was a disease of lost self. And I thought, oh my gosh, and it's like a pattern of behavior where people are prioritizing the needs and desires of others to the detriment of their own well-being. And I thought, okay, that's more specific. And it's something that we all do to some degree, but some of us make a whole life out of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody, never really realizing like, hey, you don't have to do it this way. And it's not like this is the way the relationship thrives. Yeah. But two people who are in this, usually there's someone that is constantly trying to change the person, or constantly trying to please the other person, or constantly trying to make them happy, and they lose themselves in that whole process. And so that whole disease of a lost self it just kind of made me like go, whoa. Yeah. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Cause codependency, I think, was the term, or that when they started talking about it was somewhere in the 60s, I think, originally. And it was basically developed around the 12-step program, and chemically dependent partners were thought to have some form of codependency. Yeah. And it's really because your needs aren't not being met, and you're really trying to, try to meet the other person's needs because of their chemical dependency. Yeah. And you start to put yourself aside. Yeah.
Yeah.
over and over. And you learn that at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be lots of opportunity to lose yourself when you're in a relationship with somebody who is chemically dependent or, addicted to something, because there's a big void that you're having to fill.
Yeah.
And that, I think you're right. That's where it kind of started, where they started to notice a pattern of behavior in people who were partnered with people who were chemically dependent, and noticing that this was a common thing for those partners. And so
that's why they started Al-Anon.
Yeah,
actually.
that's really,
The
wives. And at first they would call it like a para-alcoholic or a para, which it's still, every time I was listening to that, I'm like, well, then I would still feel like I was being labeled as
an alcoholic.
Yeah. And it's like, that didn't really fit. So having it termed as codependent kind of made more sense. And you're right. That's where the people who were, there was a group of, I think, wives who were dealing with the addiction of their husbands in whatever way, shape, or form. They developed their own support group, and then that became Al-Anon, which went on to help millions of people.
Yeah.
But there was definitely this kind of tracking of behaviors that became very common in that group.
Yeah.
But then they realized also that it was common in a lot of other relationship dynamics.
Yeah.
Where this was a similar thing, where there was this disease of lost self.
Or family dynamics too. Yeah. Because I think sexual abuse can also play a role in that and give you a dependency as well. So
emotional abuse. You're just having to neglect your own needs because of this person in the relationship who seems to have more.
Yeah.
Right. And so even as a child, if that is a dynamic that you grow up with in whatever way, shape, or form, that becomes like what a normal relationship feels like.
Yeah.
And so the tendency then is to end up in a relationship that feels comfortable, which is also probably emulating a relationship that may not have been healthy as a child.
But familiar.
Yes.
Famil in family being part of that.
Unhealthy familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what are some of the key characteristics that they point out? Like, how do you know? What are some signs that you may be codependent or in a codependent relationship?
Well, I mean, I always thought like codependency before I did any reading on it was just like, oh, well, when I go to the gym, I need to have a partner. And when I work on projects, I need to have somebody with me just because I don't like really doing things by myself.
Oh, so you thought that was codependent?
I literally thought that was codependency.
When you don't like doing something by yourself. Ah, okay. Yeah. I
mean, it's the basic.
It seems like that's what makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, logically, that broke down for me as like, that's what codependency is that I don't like doing anything by myself. But I'm sure that's one of the traits. That's probably a big red flag.
Yep.
What's another one?
Difficulty setting healthy boundaries.
Who has that problem? I don't know.
I don't know. Most people. And major people pleasing.
Yeah, I'm a big one on that.
Yeah.
And I started to notice because I'm a big people pleaser. I guess it's just kind of what I do for a living. Also, I'm kind of a helper or a caretaker. And if some parts of that are like that's. My last name is Factor, and it's like steward or caretaker or something to that along those lines. So yeah, I mean,
but the difference is it's when you do the people pleasing and you neglect your own needs.
Yeah.
So that's where it's one thing to be a people pleaser. I think many of us are. Yeah. We don't like to say no. That's not necessarily codependent, but when you're saying yes and you're doing this people pleasing and trying to make everything nice for everyone or for your partner, but you are neglecting your own needs. Yeah. That's kind of that's a key characteristic.
Yeah. One of the ways that I notice that I do that for myself is I'm big on, trying to help other people and do things, and even around the house or opening doors for Ellen every time, all these little things that I do. I recognize sometimes that I do them and it doesn't feel authentic. It's because I kind of want those things done for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In some ways, I'm doing them with the expectation that somebody will care for me in that same way because it's the way that I want to be cared for. Does that make sense? And then when I don't receive those things, it's not reciprocated. I start to feel like my needs aren't being met, and I start going out in my own little
wheel
of
spiraling,
like,
making a story about it in your head.
Yep, exactly.
About what that means.
Yeah. So caretaking, when I feel it, really just turn it back on myself. If I try to do these things for other people, now I'm asking myself, since I've read this, is like, am I doing these things for myself? That's what I'm just asking myself now.
And is what you're doing actually a form of manipulation? Because it is, are you trying to control the relationship or control the behavior of the other person?
Yeah, I'm really asking myself that pretty often now, because I'm like, oh, why am I doing this now? And it's weird because I don't know if it's the ego or it's an authentic place, or I mean, I really do just genuinely like to take care of things and take care of people.
Yeah.
And I feel like it does come from an authentic place. But since I read this, it's making me question the reason.
If you're resenting,
that's exactly.
I feel like that's kind of a key component.
Yeah.
If you're doing something and then you're resenting them for not doing it or not returning that, then that seems like, then really what's the motivation for doing it?
Yeah.
You know? And then the other one is a strong sense of guilt and perfectionism.
Yeah.
So, again, things that we all have, but it's really kind of thinking about, are you doing these things and then losing yourself in them?
Yeah.
So it's one thing to be, a kind, considerate person. I think that that's important.
Yeah.
And to take care of the people around you, for sure. But if you're losing yourself in it and it becomes kind of like your job or your role, how much of that is just a familiar, comfortability, and how much of it is that you really are just trying to be, kind and take care of things like a responsible person would, or especially if you're a mother or father, It's more of like when you're losing yourself in the relationship by trying to control, and you have this strong sense of guilt and perfectionism over how it should be done. Those are some things to start looking at, like, where am I in a codependent relationship? Am I a codependent?
Yeah. There's also deep-seated fear of abandonment, right? Mm-hmm. And you really seek external validation, and those are things that I definitely have fears of. And sometimes it feels like I'm trying to prove my worth a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And so now, this whole codependency is making me question all those things. Like, why do I do all these things? Because sometimes it does send me into the negative.
Yeah.
And that's when I recognize, if I feel like I'm doing it for validation, I think I'm starting to realize maybe that's the key to, like, knowing when I'm doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Or you have an expectation that's built around what you're doing.
The outcome.
Yeah. Which leads to disappointment.
Yeah.
Right. And, one of the things that she brought up, and it really kind of made me pause, because it's something that when I'm dealing with people and kind of recognizing patterns in people and all of that, is that, like, for a person who grows up in a dysfunctional family, right? Whether it's addiction or there's a mental health issue with a parent or somebody in the family, because those things can contribute to codependent behavior. That when we choose relationships, a lot of times we're choosing relationships in order to kind of mirror back these things for ourselves. And I really do believe, like, we do that in order to come back to ourselves. Yeah. Because at some point it's like you want to learn this lesson. You want to get to the other side of it. Yeah. And until you do, that lesson's not complete. Yeah. Right? It's like going to third grade. Well, until you graduate third grade, you don't go to fourth grade. So you end up picking a partner just like the last one when it didn't work out. Why do I keep ending up with this type of person? And part of it is probably because you haven't learned the lesson from the first one. Yeah. You just try to kind of get someone else that maybe makes you happy for a while, but you realize, like, man, we're in the same behaviors. Or I picked another person who's addicted to something, or who, is kind of unstable in a way, because in a way it's satisfying something in you to be able to act out on these behaviors of needing to save them or needing to make things perfect. So then maybe they'll be happy, and it's a losing game, so you'll keep going back into these similar types of relationships or friendships, in order to complete this lesson. So it's really, the reason I thought it was important to do this podcast, or any of our podcasts, right, are really just for people to ask themselves some questions. Yeah. Because, we are not the experts on codependency. No. Right? Yeah. But we're realizing that when we recognize that this is an actual behavior that's possible is just giving somebody the opportunity to start asking questions.
Yeah.
Could this be?
Yeah.
Could this be? Maybe it's not for you, it was for you.
Yeah. It's
right?
getting back to the source of things.
It's getting back to the source, because the only way that you can start to shift out of that pattern of behavior is to bring some awareness to it.
Yeah. Recognize what it is, what's causing it, where it stemmed from.
Right. And then start to shine that flashlight on it.
Yep.
On those shadows.
Yeah.
Because if it is, then you start to have a choice.
Yeah.
When you become aware of something, then you can start to make a choice. Is this the way that I want to keep doing it? Or do I want to make a different choice? And until you become aware, there's no choice. You just keep repeating the pattern. You keep repeating the behavior. You keep staying in the story with the same person or type of person or situation in order to fulfill that lesson. Until
you fix that or find the treasure in that trigger and decide to go into that and figure out what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you're right. People come into your life for a reason or a season. And sometimes that reason is for you to come back to yourself.
Yeah.
For you to realize, there was a lot of hurt probably as a child. There was a lot of things that were dysfunctional. And you can keep repeating the pattern, or you can start to ask some questions and say, is this possible that this is what's happening? Is this the pattern that I'm participating in? And do I want to keep choosing that?
Yeah.
Because that's where your power is. You have a power to choose. But until you graduate third grade, that person will keep showing up for you.
Yeah.
Or that boss, that job, whatever it is. You have to shine a light on it, start asking some questions and see about, is there some different choices that you could be making in order to heal, in order to move forward?
I really find, and it's something that I've accused Dad of, which is the savior complex, right? Which is just trying to save everybody. And I really see those same kind of character traits in myself, and applying the codependency, it just shines so bright. Like you're just you feel like you got to save everybody or save.
Yeah.
And to the detriment of yourself.
Do you think savior complex is really similar to codependency? Because in some ways I feel like it is.
I don't know. I mean, it's something that I'm just trying to pull the threads on right now, but I do see how without a doubt, there's some crossover.
Yeah.
And there's some enmeshment in there, because it's one of the reasons that makes me push so hard to try to fix things, especially, you know what I mean, in the marriage or in relationships with my son, or even friendships. It's just everything. I'm just trying to fix so bad, just to fix all these relationships. And really, I think it's that need, that abandonment, and wanting people to see your worth and that kind of thing. Most of us want that anyways, want to be seen and heard.
Yeah. But when can you see and hear yourself?
Yeah, we got to take the time for that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like savior complex being something like where you think it's your job and you actually need people in your life to save.
Yeah.
Meaning that. So that's something we've dealt with our own dad, and noticing that was that's a deep pattern in our family where, our dad was constantly trying to save someone, mainly our mothers, and then, be the hero.
Yep.
And so if there was no one left to save, it's like, well, where's my worth now?
Yeah.
And so we'll find someone, or create a situation, or dedicate all of our energy to this saving this whatever story it is.
It's also creating chaos just so you could manage it somehow to satisfy your need, right?
Exactly, creating chaos. Like if you grew up in chaos, chaos is comfortable.
Yeah.
And chaos could look like choosing a partner who is addicted or is, mentally unstable, or whatever that looks like. Because chaos can also be very comfortable.
Yeah.
And we had that even with our mom.
Yeah.
So I think that there is something to say, feeling like you have to save everyone and being codependent. Yeah. Because in order to save, you need someone who needs saving.
Yeah.
So there's a codependency really built right into that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's just really starting to ask the questions like, is this a thing? Because I'd say a year ago, was this even something in your thought process?
Yeah.
And now that even just reading a book or listening to something like this, you can be like, whoa, is that? And is it? Just start doing some a little bit of a deep dive.
Yeah.
And to see like, what is actually the underlying story of who I am?
Yeah.
Am I trying to save people? Do I need to constantly be doing that in order to feel worthy?
Or distract us. That's the other thing.
Distract you
part
from
of it
your
is
own.
distracting myself from, doing what I need to do. So it's just a way of kind of getting things in the way and keeping so busy. It's another thing that I've done so well, is keep so busy that I don't sit still enough to recognize what's really going on under the surface.
Yeah. You end up trying to tell someone else what to do and you're like, whoa.
Well, that's what hit heavy for me this week was like, I'm trying to, speak to family members and really push through this really incredibly difficult situation and just not really having great communication because in a way our family feels split. And because of things that, the dysfunction in our family. And it feels like it's finally, we're having to actually be forced to talk to people that we haven't talked to in years. Mm-hmm. We're having to force and deal with our own feelings on these people or individuals. And I've realized that we've hurt each other without even saying things to each other because we're misunderstood. Yeah. And so it's just bringing all of this right to the forefront for me. And I'm forced to really see that I don't have to, this isn't my battle here. Like I can do what I feel is good on my part, but I think this is really shine for me where I have to set a boundary and recognize my codependency and my savior complex or whatever that is, and really focus and just turn back on me, because what came up for me while I'm trying to tell this other person what they need to do and what they need to do to become healthy and the best chance they have to doing what they need. Everybody has said things, those same, not the exact same things, but have said things to me that I need to do to heal. And I haven't done them. And why? Yeah. Just get in the freaking car, right? Like, how are we going to say that? But I'm not even getting in the car, but here I am judging this guy and yelling and getting angry and just like, please get in the car. This is the best thing, please. Yeah. This is the vehicle is going to fix everything. But really knowing deep down, the more I looked at it, the red and green Post-it notes, what I have control over and what I don't, and using all the things that we talk about every week and just going, okay, the things I talk about, I got to put it into practice. And so really putting those into practice, just brought to the forefront, like, I need to set a boundary for myself. So I think that's one of the things I took from this whole situation is just, one, asking myself, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? If it's caretaking for somebody or trying to save somebody, if that's what it is.
Who may not want saving.
Who may not want it. Yeah, that is, man.
That's a big part of it.
That's the number one. Willingness is the number one part. Yeah. Right. And I don't even have that for myself in many ways, even though I'm doing the work, I feel, Yeah. So it's just stages of it and getting comfortable with it. So everybody's going to go at their own pace and you can't force anything. And even at this stage, and as much as we've been doing the work, still recognizing that is the fact. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then I got to come back to asking myself these same questions. And I think really that's what this book did for me, was like, what am I telling other people to do or trying to save in other people? And how am I trying to help other people? And in what ways do I need to help myself in those ways that I see those other people are failing? Because in a lot of ways, like when I see my son or my kids doing something wrong, I'm really seeing something that I did wrong and I'm judging what I did once, and I don't want them to repeat the same mistakes. So we do that for everybody else. Yeah. Right? But do we actually do it for ourselves? Nope. And that's what I'm asking myself for this codependency thing. Yeah. You don't want to lose yourself in it. It's a disease of lost self. That's a t-shirt. You know what I mean? The disease of lost self. Codependency, yeah. Yeah. I think because that's the thing. Like the person you're trying to save, one, ask yourself, do they want to be saved? Or are they fulfilling something in you that you need them to be broken in order to fulfill the story that you want to be right about, that this is who you are. And, it's not something consciously that we do, but it is something that's kind of this, it's implanted in us as the story of who we are. And until you start looking at that story and asking yourself, is this the story I want to keep writing? Is this the main character that I want to be in this story? And when you do that, then, maybe you can start making some other choices. Yeah. But first is just to start asking the question. Yeah. Are you losing yourself in trying to
save this other person or keep the peace constantly or be, people pleasing to the detriment of who you are.
Yeah.
Then really you're doing that. People pleasing is all in vain. Like, you resent it.
Yeah.
If you're you're taking care of something or you're saying yes to something and you feel resentful, that's a no-win.
Yeah.
That's a no-win. So it's really having to just start asking the questions. And one of the things that she talks about too is really like self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like? It's really starting to, I think part of that is just starting to set boundaries and doing some inner reflection.
Yep.
Start asking questions, start reading, start talking, start asking, other people around you, just maybe even connecting with a group or a support group like Al-Anon, if you are dealing with somebody who's in, some type of chemical dependency, is to start seeking out support or from a professional as well, and just start asking the questions. That's all we want. Just start asking the questions. Just where is your awareness around it?
Yeah.
And all of that, the road to awareness starts with just asking questions, not just accepting things for how they are.
Mm.
So, and really, taking the time for yourself. Don't lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big part of it. But I don't know. What else do you think that you've realized about your own process, or how do you want to do this differently? How has this changed? How I'd see it's changed the way you're looking at it, but how does it change how you?
I don't know. It's making me sit still a little bit now and really just kind of watch what's going on, because I'm what I've always done in the past is just react, and I really want to respond here. So I really just want to pull in the moment and just try to see where and do some writing on where I'm not free, where I'm doing things a little different, and kind of just ask myself those and do some writing on those questions for myself.
Yeah.
Kind
of zoom out.
Yeah. Zoom out, little squirrel view.
Yeah. Zoom out to the hawk's view.
Drone view.
Yeah, the drone view. Yeah. Zoom out and be like, looking at it from not just your intermeshed perspective and painful perspective, but just detach from it a little bit and just kind of see what's really going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to go on this episode.
We're going to continue with codependency.
Yeah. I have a feeling we're going to touch back on this one a couple of times, but we encourage you to check out this book. It's,
Melody Beatty.
Codependency No More.
Yeah. Codependency No More.
Codependency No More.
Start asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.